Welcome to Lawyers in the House with Montlick. Wish you had a lawyer in the family? Now you do. Here's your host, Veronica Waters.
Hey, welcome to the house, Lawyers in the House with Montlick on WSB. How is everybody doing? I'm your girl, Veronica Waters, here, welcoming you in to make yourself comfortable and join us for another fun episode. You know, there's one thing I've noticed when getting ready for today's show. As many movies and television shows and even documentaries as there are about lawyers and court cases, there are not nearly as many about how those characters got to be the lawyers that they are. Why did it take Vincent LaGuardia Gambini 6 tries to pass the bar exam? What kind of student was Annalise Keating before she became a professor of law? Was she always so unflappable and so brilliant? How did Harvey Specter get so good at legal strategy and research? How did Sonny Carisi get his amazingly strict code of legal ethics? And was there something that helped Ally McBeal get that winning trial strategy she seemed to always have? Well, today we're going to sort of delve into those questions, but on the real side of the fence, not the fictional side, because in the studio today I'm hosting 2 legal legacies. They are the daughters of a couple of high-powered attorneys at Montlick Injury Attorneys, and they're going to talk about their transition from law school to law itself. Now, our first guest, you've met before. Her name is Nikki Montlick, and yes, that Montlick, she is the daughter of the firm founder, David Montlick, and she joins us again here on Lawyers in the House. Welcome back to the house, Nikki.
Thank you. So good to be here.
I'm so happy to have you here and to actually focus not just on cases and all the research that we were talking about before, but really your personal journey. So start off by telling folks what really it was that triggered your interest in law. I can only imagine that you were walking around the firm's hallways as a tiny girl.
Yeah, well, I never had a doubt in my mind that I wanted to be an attorney. I grew up watching my dad, he founded Montlick Injury Attorneys in 1984, and he did so, with the desire to provide really top quality legal service, but he really wanted to give back to the community in a meaningful way. And so naturally growing up watching him and seeing how he did things and how he treated people and how important it was to him, I wanted to do the same thing and to pursue a legal career. But I started in the firm when I was a teenager, and I've done a bunch of different things over the years, and it does feel like home there, very much so because of the people that have become like family. But I was in communications, and I was a legal assistant and a law clerk, and really grew up around it. So it was never a doubt in my mind that I would go to law school and do the same.
Was there ever a doubt in your mind that you would move into personal injury law? Did you consider other fields?
No, I always knew I wanted to go into personal injury. I think there's a lot of different fields of law that are really rewarding, but I think actually being able to help people in what's often the most difficult times of their lives was something that I found really powerful and really grabbed me.
And Nikki, having been in the hallways of Montlick for so long, even before you were a teenager, back then you were advocating for some of the firm's public service programs. Now you're an actual attorney. Does it feel different?
It does feel different. I think there's a certain responsibility that comes with being an attorney. I really do believe that attorneys they're not just advocates for justice, but they're really the backbone of so many things in our country, and protecting the underdog is so important. And it's a big responsibility. I feel it's an honor and a privilege, and I feel a lot of accountability around being an attorney. And I think it takes a lot of hard work, but with that, it's a privilege to be able to advocate for people when they're going through something challenging, and they trust you with that responsibility.
I love it. That's beautiful. And sitting to Nikki's left is someone new to Lawyers in the House. Her name is Elizabeth Marra, and you probably recognize her last name because her dad, Orlando, has been in the house with us several times before. Welcome to Lawyers in the House, Elizabeth.
Thanks for having me.
I'm so happy to have you. Now, I didn't ask Nikki, where did you go to law school?
I went to the University of Miami.
University of Miami. And what about you, Elizabeth? Law school.
I went to Atlanta's John Marshall Law School.
John Marshall Law School, not far from our studios here in Midtown Atlanta. So talk to me a little bit about your journey into law. I'm so curious whether, did your dad have anything to do with your love of the law?
I think he did, but in a way that was very indirect. Like Nikki, I grew up kind of in the halls of Montlick because my dad started there when I was 3 months old. He actually moved up from Florida because he was an attorney in Florida first. Moved up from Florida, took the Georgia bar. I think a couple weeks later I was born. And then 3 months later, because you have to wait 3 months for your bar results in Georgia. 3 months later, he got his bar results and then started back up at the firm. Well, not back up, I guess, at the firm now that he moved up from Florida. And then I grew up kind of just running around the halls annoying people when we were off on summer breaks and we could beg him and get into the office. So I got to see a lot of it. I don't think I really understood what he did until I was in maybe middle school and I had a project on what my parents did for a living. And I asked him and he said he was a lawyer. And I was like, no, you're not. And he was like, what do you think I do? I was like, I don't know, but you're not a lawyer. And he kind of broke it down. I was like, no, I am. And he explained to me for the project what all he did and who he helped and how he helped them. And I thought it was really cool, but I thought that sounded way too impressive for anything I would set my sights on. And then I found myself in special education and really loving that community. But I didn't really love the academic side of being a teacher. So that kind of burned that one down for me pretty quickly. I got the degree in it, got certified in being a special ed teacher. Tried it in my student teaching years and realized I like it, but I didn't want to do it for forever. And then I was thinking law sounded cool, but hard. I thought law school sounded really hard. And I was thinking behavioral therapy sounded interesting. Not that there's really much in common there, but those are my two options. And I started talking to my dad about it, and we had never really discussed law for me in any context before. And he didn't really push me any which way. He was like, whatever you think, I don't want to tell you what to do. Whatever you think, you've got to get there on your own. And then COVID hit, and I eventually was like, okay, I'm going to go to law school. And he was like, great. And then I applied and got my results, or I got accepted like a week later. And he was like, is that what you want? And I was like, yep. And he was like, then that's great. And I was like, okay. So he was there modeling it, but he didn't ever push it or even kind of present it to me in a way that he put it on the table. As something that I came to just kind of stumbling across it. And then somewhere in that journey too, between graduating my undergrad and deciding to go to law school, I came and worked at the firm as a legal assistant for a few years there. And I think that kind of solidified for me, yeah, this is what I want to do and the kind of work I want to do and help the community with. And that's where I wanted to be. And then when I went to law school, it was keep your mind open. You never know what kind of law you want to do. And I was like, I'll keep my mind open, but I'm pretty sure I know. And
it turns out that you were right. So it feels like you're
yeah.
in the right place. It feels like you're in the right field finally.
Absolutely. Yeah. I definitely don't want to do anything else. This is what I like to do because you get enough changeover because you only have clients for so long, but you have turnover because of that. So it's always interesting, but you're still always helping and you're always kind of there just for a second to touch their life when their life is thrown upside down. And then you kind of get them back standing straight, back to their normal happy selves. And they're on their way doing life again, and you get to help the next person in line.
I love that.
It keeps moving. It's a good place to be. I like it.
This is beautiful. Love this introduction to Nikki Montlick and Elizabeth Marra here on Lawyers in the House with Montlick on WSB. We're talking about the transition from law school to law practice. Well, you heard it yourselves. These folks grew up in this business, and now we're getting to talk a little bit about their family ties a little bit more. I called you legal legacies earlier because that's really how I see you, the newest generation of lawyers in the halls of Montlick and helping clients everywhere. Talk to me a little bit about what I was mentioning as we started the show. We don't really see very many TV shows or movies about law school, but Legally Blonde pops into my mind. It's like one of the two only things I could think of, right? And I got to know, especially because you're the demographic of Legally Blonde, right? You are young women and you're practically Elle Woods' yourself, right? So can we do real life versus fiction? Is there anything about Legally Blonde that actually hit the nail on the head?
So I'll tell you, there's one scene in Legally Blonde that was so closely aligned with my law school experience. It's almost funny. But there's a scene where, and it's a very famous scene where she goes to class and she hasn't done the reading and the professor throws her out of the class. And typically when you show up on the first day of law school, you have 50 to 100, sometimes more. I had a class where I had a few hundred pages of reading for the first day. You just show up prepared. And then the professor proceeds to basically orally ask you questions. You don't know when you're going to be called on. You don't know what you're going to be asked in front of the whole class. And you have, especially your first day, you really don't have any preparation as to what that's like. And so Elle shows up on the first day. She doesn't know about the reading, and the professor throws her out of the class. And I had a professor in law school who, this is what they call the Socratic method. It's where they call on you and they quiz you in front of everyone, sometimes very large classes. It's an auditorium full of people and it's a lot of stress.
No stress there. No pressure.
Yeah. Just keep
pressure.
it light. And some professors really make it their mission, I think, to come after you a little bit, and they'll ask you questions. Even if you don't know the answer, they'll keep asking you, and it puts you under a lot of stress. And I had a particular professor, it was civil procedure, and I'll never forget it, who really instilled fear in every person in his class. And he would say, if I got a question right more than once in a row, he would say, "You think you're so smart, don't you?" And it's just comical. But
would you say yes? Yes, I do.
So, well, that depends. Typical lawyer answer. But it's interesting because although I think that's a really stressful situation and it's a lot of pressure, especially when you see it in the context of that scene, but I think it's really representative of what it's like to be a lawyer, where you have to think on your feet and be really adaptive and intellectually flexible. If a judge throws something your way, you have to kind of shift gears really fast.
I can't imagine how much work there actually is. How many books, how much research, how much writing you have to do, how much stuff you have to read. 100 pages at a time, 6 cases at a time. I don't know. How intense was that, Elizabeth?
Oh, it's pretty intense. You have a lot of work and it's a lot on you at all times, but at the end, it ends up being just 1 or 2 grades a semester per class. And so you do all of this work to not get cold called in class. But then at the end of the semester, you only have 1 grade that it comes down to. So the pressure's coming at you from all different angles.
Wow. Coming up on Lawyers in the House with Montlick, we're going to talk a little bit more about how you prepare to be a really good student in law school and then taking that final step of the bar exam before becoming an attorney. That's coming up next. Stay with us. Welcome back to Lawyers in the House with Montlick on WSB. I'm Veronica Waters here with Montlick Injury Attorneys Elizabeth Marra and Nikki Montlick, and we're talking about the transition from law school to law practice. We left off with a little bit of an impression about the mountain of work that you have as a law student. And tell me, okay, I always say that I feel so smart when I can say 1L, 2L, 3L, but what is that really?
So 1L is your first year of law school, 2L is your second year of law school, 3L is your third year of law school. Instead of freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, we have 1L, 2L, 3L. 3 years.
And I can only imagine how competitive it is. When Nikki was talking about that story about how you get in front of the class and get grilled, does everybody that came into the class with you make it to graduation?
Oh, absolutely not. There's people that decide it's too hard for them. There's people that things come up in their life and they just can't keep up with the law school pressures. There's people that are, you know what? Thank you for giving me a taste. I now know I don't want to do law. And there's people that just want to stick it out and they try super hard and they just can't cut it. And then there's people that stick it out because they can cut it and they end up doing well and making it.
Yeah. I think it's all about resilience, right? It's about what's good for you, where your heart is. If your brain tells you, I really like this, I want to stay in it. There's so much to learn, so much to know. And then you two stuck it out and obviously then had to take the bar exam.
Yes.
Tell me about that.
I think you hit the nail on the head. The bar exam, to me, is a test of mental and emotional resilience, and it's a test of discipline. And it's interesting because you learn a certain way throughout law school, and then you're thrown the bar, which is just this beast of an exam. And it's really like nothing you've ever done before. And it's just a ton of information on a ton of different subjects, and you really have to shift your way of thinking. But I think the main test is, do you have the mental toughness to not psych yourself out and to stick it out and, every day show up with a really strong sense of focus. And I think if you get through the bar prep and you don't psych yourself out, then you've made it and you've done most of the work.
Tell me about the bar exam. My understanding of it from what I've read was, you're laughing. You don't have to laugh. I mean, you don't have to tell me actual questions, but
Don't remind me.
traumatic. Is it traumatic? Oh my gosh, that's a huge word to describe a test. But I guess, it could be. It's your future in a way on the line, right? But you can take it as many times as you want, just like Vinny did.
Well, it only is offered twice a year. So you can take it, I'm sure, as many times as you want. I don't think there's a cap on it. But you only can sit for it every 6 months, and you have to wait 3 months. At least in Georgia, you have to wait 3 months for your results. So you're kind of sitting there stressed out for the majority of the year. It also takes about 3 months to study for it, and it's an intense 3 months. You are isolated from your friends. You're not talking to people. You're not going out to get dinner with people or drinking with people. Everything is cut off and isolated, and you are just working on studying for that bar. And a lot of people take out bar loans where they're studying for the bar and they live off of a loan during that time period.
So they don't have to take time away from study
to
go to work.
Their
wow,
full-time job is studying. And that's the way you pass the bar.
And it's a lot of essays, right? And multiple choice questions.
Yes, so it's
over
2
a couple
days.
of days. Okay.
It's 2 days. The first day is going to be state specific, and that's going to have a task-centered portion, and then the second half of day 1 is 4 essays in Georgia, and then day 2 is your multiple choice, which is the whole country takes that same test on that same day.
The uniform bar exam. That's amazing. So coming up, we are going to talk about what it's like after you pass the bar and you find yourself in the hallways of a law firm. Coming up next on Lawyers in the House with Montlick on WSB. Welcome back to the house. It's Lawyers in the House with Montlick on WSB. I'm Veronica Waters here with Nikki Montlick and Elizabeth Marra, 2 attorneys from Montlick Injury Attorneys who are talking about their transition from law school to law itself. And if you missed any of these cool stories from the first half of the show, don't worry, we got you. You can subscribe to Lawyers in the House on your favorite podcast platform, and you can check us out every single day. The show is not airing on every social platform at Montlick Law. Also, remember, you can take a look at our smiling faces as well as listen to the show if you just log on to YouTube and find Montlick Law there. Lawyers in the House is going to be ready and waiting for you. Ready and waiting for Nikki and Elizabeth was the bar exam, and they were talking about how resilient you have to be, how tough you have to be to get through it. I know, ladies, I have heard stories of somebody getting sick at the bar because they were so stressed out, people being in tears because it is so incredibly intense. Where were you when you found out that you actually passed?
Well, I was at home because they email you your scores now. I've heard horror stories from other attorneys that were prior to them emailing the scores, and they're like, you just sit by your mailbox just waiting for the postman. But we are lucky to
be in the digital age.
Be in the digital age, and we got an email the morning of Friday the 13th in October. And you get an email that says if you passed or not, and I think it also tells you your score in that email. But you usually don't get that far. You just kind of worry about that first sentence. That's congrats, you passed. And then the first thing you do, or the first thing I did, was I called my dad, of course. But then I started calling judges. I was like, who can swear me in? And then I got sworn in that following Monday at, I think, 8 a.m.
That's amazing. What did it feel like? What did it feel like?
Like it was done, finally. Like I could just practice law now, and it was all behind me, and I could just be the attorney I wanted to be.
What about you, Nikki?
I just remember feeling this cosmic sense of relief, like weight lifted off my shoulders. But I I had it in my head, like, I want this so bad. Like, I'm already an attorney. I'm already an attorney. And I said that to myself on repeat for probably, honestly, like 6 months. So when it happened, it just felt right.
It felt right. What did you learn about yourself from that whole process and getting through the bar?
It was definitely a testament to how bad do you want this, and what work are you willing to put into it? But I definitely felt an extreme sense of accomplishment after taking the bar. But I did learn that the bar really is not indicative of who you're going to be as a lawyer. It's not indicative of how skilled you're going to be in front of a court. It really is a testament to how determined you are to overcome it. And I think if a lot of attorneys, even if you take the bar more than once, it's not representative of who you are as an attorney. It's very much just a milestone that you have to get past, and it's a rite of passage for all attorneys.
And Elizabeth had mentioned too, it doesn't tell you what you're going to be like as a lawyer because it doesn't really teach you your style either. Mm-hmm. You sort of develop that in the hallways of your law firm and going to court and drafting motions and things like that. Am I right?
Yeah. We always say law school teaches you how to think like an attorney. It doesn't teach you how to actually practice. That practice really comes with experience and with mentorship and really being in the thick of it.
All right, but you two grew up in this business. I mean, let's not overlook that. So you have a lot of legal knowledge and practical experience that maybe a lot of students don't even get until they get into law school, maybe college if they're lucky, right? But I'm curious to know what I asked you earlier what it feels like, how it feels different, but tell me about the actual transition. Like, you started taking cases, you started actually practicing. How different is that from your law school experience?
Well, we both started as legal assistants before applying to law school and going and kind of getting our feet wet in that. And then throughout law school, we both were law clerks and kept busy with the firm stuff as we grew in our law school career and were allowed to do more. The firm allowed us to do more and kind of get ourselves involved more. So we got to kind of see things as we were learning them in a kind of like a practicum way where like student teachers have practicums where they student teach while they're learning how to teach. You kind of get that influence. And a lot of people end up doing internships and externships in law school where they're law clerks. We had the added advantage of we already knew what field we want to do because we worked in it prior as legal assistants. But once you get there, it's definitely different. Being a law clerk feels closer to like being a legal assistant. And then once you pass the bar and you actually are the attorney and it's your license on the line and you're the one making the final call on things, there's a severity to it that I think kind of hits you and you're like, whew, this is okay. I'm not just taking orders from another attorney who knows their stuff. I am the attorney and I have to know my stuff. And you kind of step up to the challenge or you don't. But I think, at Montlick, at least, we all definitely step up to the challenge. But I think it's because we like what we do and we kind of care about it a little bit more than just a case. It's exciting when we sign up a case because we know it's the next person we get to help. And that's what we care about in getting them to their happy, healthy, better self that they were prior to the accident. So
yeah, and Nikki also earlier mentioned the added sense of responsibility that you have because you're the now one heading up those cases yourselves. It's, may I speak to my attorney Elizabeth? May I speak to my attorney Nikki? You're not just handing the phone off anymore. That phone call stops with you. How amazing.
Absolutely.
How amazing. What did law school prepare you for?
I think the most meaningful thing that I did in law school was get actual experience. And I would encourage anyone who's in law school to do the same. I think if you don't know what you want to do, it's an opportunity to go test the waters and try to figure that out. But if you do know what you want to do and what field you want to go into, I think getting actual practical work experience really adds new meaning to what you're learning in the class. And I think it brings it not only practicality, but it just makes it seem way more real. And applicable to what you're going to be doing. So I would say getting actual work experience was critical.
Yeah, it's not so abstract, right?
Yeah.
And I've read that some law school classes are pretty abstract. Like people say that constitutional law is pretty tough and it's more conceptual than some of the other things that you might have to do. But if you have that experience in real life to pair with it, it's got to sort of make everything come to life more, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think in personal injury was something that you kind of got to see multiple aspects of the law by being at one firm, because we see a lot of car accidents. With car accidents, a lot of citations happen. So we got, there's times when we do kind of peek through the window into the criminal side of things, even though we are on the civil side. And then, we have paperwork, contracts, releases. So a lot of things in transactional drafting came up that I could kind of draw from my experiences at the firm. Things came up in contracts and torts, obviously, because personal injury is tort law. There's a lot of things that were able to be kind of pulled from my experience at the firm and cases I had worked on and seen that helped get me kind of through law school and gave me those hypotheticals outside of what we went over in class, which are usually ancient cases that are hard to relate to.
Ancient cases. Now, tell me this. This is probably not something that you have to do very much, but I know that in law school, you have to learn how to argue a case from both sides, right? That probably comes into effect maybe when you're dealing with liability.
100%. Yeah, I think it's really important to be really logical and really rational, but be able to see things objectively from both sides. Because as a lawyer, you have to be able to identify not just your own strong argument for your client, but you have to identify counter arguments, and then how are you going to rebuff them? Yeah. And they do a good job of that, I think, in law school. They assign they have this one class where they assign you, a big memo and that you have to write where you present the facts and the arguments and the counter arguments. And a lot of the times by the end of the semester, right before the due date, they'll flip it on you and they'll say, you know what, you were advocating for the plaintiff. Now you have to switch sides and you have to write, as if you're the counsel representing the defendant. So it's interesting, and it's really a testament to your ability to be able to think on your feet.
Yeah, it makes me think of too, in a sort of different but sort of parallel way, is how Montlick has lawyers at the firm who've actually worked for insurance companies and now are advocating for plaintiffs. They're working for the people who were hurt instead of for the insurance companies. I think that's interesting. They got to see both sides of the law as it applies to a singular subject, a singular area, which has got to be so fascinating. And they talk about how it feels like they're wearing the capes now. They're the good guys. Their words, not mine, people. Tell me, this might be a tough question. What did law school not prepare you for? Ooh.
Let me think about that for a moment.
Okay.
That's a great question. I think like anything, law school is what you make of it. So if you can choose to be involved in the things that you think will help you the most.
I think there's a lot, like we said earlier, in practicing law that it doesn't prepare you for, but it doesn't promise to prepare you for that. So it doesn't kind of sell you short of anything. But there are things that you have gaps in your ability to practice for sure, because you don't have the experience or you don't have your own style yet and you haven't kind of worked with people. And for us at Montlick, it's easy because we have 40 plus attorneys that you can kind of go down the hall with and, hey, I've got a tricky one. Let's talk it out. And what have you seen in your experience? And the experience ranges from new attorneys to attorneys who've been practicing for 30 years. So there's a lot you can kind of figure out on your own, but law school never really says it's going to prepare you for that. So it's like, yeah, it doesn't prepare you for it, but you're supposed to get that later on when you find your niche and you find the people that you want to guide you and that you like the way they practice, and you're like, I respect that. Tell me your ways.
That is so insightful. All right, let's get down to the practicing nitty gritty. Who can share stories with me about like your first cases?
Actually, one of my very first cases that I signed up was actually a very similar situation to one of our bar essays, which is kind of wild because our bar year, there wasn't supposed to be a tort-related essay. There's statistics on it that they kind of break down in bar prep. If you're not in bar prep, don't worry about it yet. They'll give it all to you when you're there. But you kind of know what topics are most likely to be tested on your specific bar at that time of year and for that year. And torts was not expected to be one of ours, but it was. And that situation on that bar ended up being almost identical to my very first case sign up. And it was a wild situation that you do not see very often. So it was very interesting and kind of just funny that that was the case.
Nikki, I see your light bulb just came on.
Yeah, I think that the thing that law school doesn't prepare you for is the human element. Often, you talk to clients so much, and a lot of times attorneys, we're not just providing legal support, we're providing guidance, emotional support. I mean, when an attorney is really exceptional, a lot of times by the end of the case, you have a friend, and it's so much more than just providing legal support a lot of the time. So I think preparing you for the human element of how to be really empathetic and caring and a really attuned listener, I think that's something that some people just intrinsically have, and then a lot of people, you learn through experience and you fine tune that to be, an even better support system, not just a legal advocate.
Coming up on Lawyers in the House with Montlick, the MCA is on the way. Don't you miss it. Welcome back to Lawyers in the House with Montlick on WSB. I'm your girl, Veronica Waters, here with Legal Legacies, Elizabeth Marra and Nikki Montlick, talking about their transition from law school to law. Ladies, the Montlick closing argument is here. Take it away.
Not all law firms are the same. It makes a difference what law firm you hire. There are critical factors like, for example, being able to speak to your attorney on the first call or even get them on the phone at all. It's really important. When you call us, you're going to speak to us on the first call. And if you need to reach us, we're here for you. That's something that, not all law firms offer. I mean, you don't want to go, if you want to, you don't want to go, a month or God forbid, 8 months without hearing from or speaking to your attorney. It's important that if you need them, they're there and they're accessible.
No doubt.
Yeah, we answer our phones and we proactively call you regularly. So we're always on the same page with you as a client, and you always know what's going on with your cases. And most importantly, you have attorneys that care. So we care what we're doing. We care what we're fighting for you and advocating for you. So we want to make sure you're in the loop, we're in the loop, and we're doing it as a team together to get you the best settlement. And we've got years of experience to rely on down the hall, upstairs. We've got plenty of attorneys to bounce off of. So you get one attorney with the experience of a myriad of attorneys and decades of experience from all of them combined that
decades.
You just don't get from other firms. Because at other firms, it's a competition.
Licensed in several states, too, which is fantastic.
In many, many states, yeah.
All right. Trick question. What surprised you about becoming a lawyer?
I think for me, it was just kind of how naturally you kind of step into it. It kind of just, everything starts happening so fast, and then you look up and you're like, oh, I'm just doing it. I'm rocking it. We're fighting for people. We're settling stuff, and we're making people happy with it. So
yeah, I think I was really pleasantly surprised by how eager and open other attorneys are to share knowledge with you and help you and lift you up. I think it's really key when you're choosing a place to work at a place that really supports you and offers opportunities for mentorship, or you can walk down the hall like Lizzie said and hey, can I pick your brain about this sort of thing? And it's really it's something I really appreciate and am grateful for, to have so many attorneys that I really admire and respect that I work with.
Quick question as we get toward the end of our time together. What's the best advice your dad ever gave you, Nikki?
Oh my gosh. I think always treat people with a lot of kindness and respect. And I think he always instilled in me that everyone has something really valuable to offer. And, you're never bigger than an opportunity, and you can always listen to someone and make them feel heard.
What about you, Elizabeth?
I think it's a hard question because Orlando gives a lot of good advice. But I think career-wise, what's always stuck with me is something that my grandfather actually told him when he was getting ready to kind of pick a career and get started. And it's, if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life, which is an old cliche, but it's a good one, and it's true. So.
And it is coming true for these two legal legacies. Thank you so much to Elizabeth Marra and Nikki Montlick for being in the house with Lawyers in the House with Montlick on WSB. Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg said, whatever you choose to do, leave tracks. That means don't do it just for yourself. you will want to leave the world a little better for your having lived. Talk about these two legal legacies, following in the tracks of their fathers who have been helping people injured through no fault of their own for decades now. Thank you so much for sharing your stories with us and being so inspirational. We'll see you next time on Lawyers in the House with Montlick on WSB. I'm Veronica Waters. Peace out.